Linux Out Loud is firing up our mics, connecting those headphones as we prepare to get rowdy. I'm Matt, and I'm joined by my fellow co-hosts, Nate and Wendy. We are three friends sitting around a virtual table talking Linux, open source, tech, gaming, and everything in between. We keep the banner friendly of the conversation and somewhat on topic, and have fun doing it. This week, we're spouting off about open source appliances. Let's get into episode 92.
Do you think maybe Friends is pushing it just a little bit?
See, if it was me, it would be frenemies. At least if it relates to Nate, I would be like, and with me are one of my frenemies, Nate, and one of my awesome co-hosts, Wendy.
See, I wouldn't actually call Nate a frenemy. I mean, there is some fun banter back and forth, but and some people don't understand the kind of banter that you guys have back and forth. They think it's hateful when it's actually meant in love and friendship. And like Nate said last week, if you were ever completely nice to him and didn't have some snide comments, he'd be like, "Oh crap, something's wrong. What's happened to Matt?" You know.
I would totally never have any snarky, sarcastic remarks about open source and Nate's totally unhealthy obsession with it. I mean, just look at his background color.
Right?
It's not easy being green. Actually, it's really easy. It's actually a lot more fun being green than anything else, but not Manjaro green either.
All right,
but
Kermit.
Anyway, what we're saying? So no, I think what people understand is, so I have two older brothers, and they like to pick. And, also being now retired, but in the military, I have, brothers in arms, and they really like to pick. So Matt is more like those brothers in arms that I've had. And like, if you were, if not accustomed to such, interactions, I can see how it'd be like considered hostile. And it is a little bit, but that's part of the fun. And I don't know, I think it's just part of the fun. And
exactly.
I mean, Matt has never. I cannot think of a time when Matt has actually offended me. Now, I might have offended Matt because I know he's kind of got a soft underbelly, but Matt has never offended me, and so it's fun.
I think it's going to take a lot more to offend me than most people will realize.
So, and then
I think that goes for all three of us here. Yeah.
Yeah. I would call Matt an honest broker. He's going to tell me exactly what he thinks.
Exactly. Yes. There is no fluff with Matt. No. It's all or nothing, right?
And those are diamonds in the rough, or sometimes rough diamonds, but whichever.
And apparently, Nate, though, something that is no longer quite as rough as because you've been upgrading your network, apparently.
Yes. So I think we talked about it last week a little bit, and I've made significant progress in the last week. So I am transitioning from having this IP Firebox that's been running on a Pentium 4 over to OpenSense running on retired WatchGuard firewall appliance. So that is an appliance, although it's running BSD, it's not Linux, so I guess it doesn't really quite fit. But it's a really nice piece of equipment. It's perfect for what I need. And I really enjoy the fact that it has no graphical display capability, so you have to communicate with it through the console cable only. So it's a serial terminal, and different experience for installing something, but there's something weirdly enjoyable. Anyway, I got that set up, and I think it was a Friday or Saturday, I can't recall which, I made the transition, Sunday actually, I made the transition of having instead of the OpenSense box being behind the IP Firebox, I've now made the switch, but everything in the network is still being, the DHCP is still being dished out by the IP Firebox, but now the OpenSense box is the firewall. And I made that so I could start working on it and start to implement, laying things out and so forth. I'm having some trouble with the VLAN portion of it. I wanted to assign a VLAN to one of the ports, but I can't even get like a machine to connect on that network. And I've followed every guide out there. I even had a new friend help me with it, an AI assistant, and we, neither myself or the digital brain could figure out my problem. So it's probably me. Anyway, so I will get it figured out eventually and probably write up an article, because all the guides are different out there, even ones that were written back in March, than the version of OpenSense I have. So there's been some changes, obviously, to the interface and something else. There's probably some other picks and clicks that I don't have. I've set the firewall rules. I've set the gateway rules. I've set all these different rules to make sure things will work, DHCP rules, but still just not working. Anyway, so what I'm going to do, instead of continuing to bang my head against the wall to get that going, I don't know how much longer the 20-year-old computer with a spinning Rust hard drive that's probably just as old is going to last. So what I want to transition sooner rather than later. So what I've done is the other hang up too is I have to figure out how to configure a managed switch to work with the OpenSense to do the VLAN trunking and everything else. I work with that stuff on a day-to-day basis in my job, my career as an IT manager, but I didn't have to set it up. I only manage what somebody else already set up. So setting it up is a different animal than maintaining something. So what I've decided to do is to break down how I want to have all my different VLANs, and I'm going to do them by subnets essentially. So I'll have like my main subnet, and then I'll have servers, and then I'll have network management. So where the switches are, like the ILO on the server that Matt and Wendy, you convinced me that I need to max out the memory on it. Everything that's environmental controls related, so lighting, thermostats, stuff like that, that will all be on its own subnet, which will be a VLAN as well. It will become a VLAN, but right now it's just going to be a subnet. Then all the security items, so locks, cameras, things like that, will all be on its own subnet. Then we'll have like a vintage net, so anything that I need to take a little extra care in ensuring that's protected from the worldwide scary webs, I'm going to put in that subnet, so I can create some other rules that what will be allowed in and out essentially. And then for things like my 3D printer and then my CNC, when that becomes is online, which you haven't had any updates on in a while, that'll be under its own Cubicle Forge subnet or VLAN, and then I'll have a guest one as well. So that's what I've decided. That's what I've worked out so far, and I think this is a good starting point. And in order to set those things up like that, what I'm going to do, and why I put the OpenSense box behind or in front of whatever as the edge device now, and then I have the IP Firebox behind it, is I want to go through and get all the MAC addresses and start assigning MAC addresses to specific areas. So all my environmental controls, all my lights, I don't want those IP addresses changing. That's just doesn't work for me, because if I need to modify a switch or add some other features to a light switch, I don't want to have to play the game of hunting and finding it. So I'm just going to have reservations for all those. And so I'll go through and create the reservations, all like 60 or so devices. And then once that's done, and then I've created the reservations for like my Pi hole, which we'll talk about that later, and then and so forth. Then I can make the transition over. And then I'm going to put specific machines, like critical machines, like my framework I'm on right now, my Commodore 64 Imposter, when that's back online, those will have reservations as well, because those machines will have additional rights to the network from other devices. So I'm going to have routing rules to protect those from, or not protect, but give those additional privileges. So if you're going to steal something from my property and you want to get access, those are the machines to steal. Just letting you know ahead of time. And then, so anyway, I'll break all that stuff down, and then I will take the IP Firebox out of the loop and then transition everything over once everything's been assigned. And then, so when I see devices come on that are assigned through a DHCP, like an address, a random address, whatever, I can then contain those better. So if I let a friend use my network, I will know whose device is the friend's device. I'll have a really detailed way of auditing everything that's on my network right now. So right now I have 155 devices. I can't say I know what every one of them are doing, because there's some that have blank entries, and I don't like those. Those frighten me. I know they're probably like devices from my kids or kids' friends.
Right.
So I just want to be able to, when those things come back, which they eventually will, I just want to know that what they are. And so that's what it boils down to. So I'm excited. I think I'm at the point, I'm very excited because I'm going from more, I guess, amateurish to a little bit more of a professional setup, I guess. That's actually that's not even the right way to put it. I wouldn't call myself a professional.
It's definitely more advanced than mine, but that's one thing I'm already doing is that I can go in and everything is labeled as of like whose device is what. Okay, this is this child's tablet, this is this child's laptop, and so on and so forth. But on top of that, each of my kids also has their own profile. Their internet gets shut off at a certain time, or that kind of thing. So I'm doing some of that already, but definitely not to the extent that you've got going on. And I'm, of course, doing that through Synology, my Synology router. But I am curious about this open source version that you are using in order to manage all that. Now, you definitely have way more devices than I do. I don't have any smart devices like that in the house. No lights, no switches, nothing like that. Not that I don't want them, just not a step that I've actually taken before. So how long do you think it's going to take you to get all of those switches and other devices tracked down and assigned?
So the majority of them that I truly care about are the lights and the servers. Those are the things I really care about. And I don't think that's going to take me all that long because I can always reassign a computer to a different VLAN or subnet. That's going to be easy. The key is going to be basically the Home Assistant and then all those other devices. And the reason those specifically, really, I just have to have Home Assistant moved over. And then I really could make the transition and that would be fine. But I don't want to have a bunch of extra DHCP entries that I have to clear out. So to me, it's just going to be easier to do this. I could probably do it in a few hours, really. And I think the plan is I'm just going to do a few at a time. And then when I get to the end of my list, then I can use OpenSense. I'm hoping it should be like pfSense in this regard, but I've not actually tested this yet. I can, rather than me create a spreadsheet with everything, I should be able to use OpenSense as my system of record for managing all my different devices, as opposed to a separate spreadsheet that I've been maintaining. And so if I can combine that, there'll be less work on me. And then I can always export that. I should be able to export that stuff as well if I really need to for whatever bizarre reason.
Right. Yeah. Nice. Very nice. Not that spreadsheets aren't great. I mean, I use them.
I love spreadsheets, but there's no sense in doing extra copying and pasting. And then sometimes my discipline falls off, which is kind of why I'm in this predicament now. And so I think it'd be best if I just use a system rather than me be the system in conjunction with a spreadsheet. Yeah,
especially if they're on a random and so they're changing ever so often, then that does make them a lot harder to keep track of as to which is which, for sure.
Yep, absolutely. So, Wendy, it looks like you have had something go bad on you with your 3D printer.
Yes. So I bragged about how fantastic my 3D printer was running on the last episode of the show.
I remember.
Heck,
I was
even
actually
sent
envious.
a message.
Super envious.
So on, what was it? Saturday, Sunday, whatever. It was a day this weekend. I think it was Saturday. So I actually had the one piece for the kids' robot 3D printing. It was running great. My first time using the nylon carbon fiber. I think I even sent you a message like, yay, it's sticking to the bed. It's doing great. Ran to town with my daughter, came back, peeked in it. Yeah, it's still printing fantastic. Sat down to continue editing DL. And my daughter walks in and she goes, Mom, it's not printing anymore. And I was like, crap. So what's the problem? I pulled up Clipper and it says that there is a short to the extruder. And I'm like, crap.
It actually detected it was a short.
Yes, it detected that it was a short. It gave me that error. I know. Isn't like, I saw someone the other day like, stop telling everybody that the answer to all your 3D printing problems is Clipper. No, the answer to all your 3D printing problems is not Clipper, but it's amazing for many of the people who use it. I love the things like that. The fact that it did tell me that it was a short, so then it was tracking down, okay, so where is that short coming from? After some trial and error, it was the extension. So this here is my extension cable. And it was at this end where I actually saw a spark. You know, you shouldn't see sparks coming from your cables
Typically,
in relation to your stepper motors. Not safe. I'm glad it threw the error, shut it down instead of like burning down the house. That was amazing. Thank you very much for that. So that print failed. Thankfully, my co-mentor was able to start the print at the build room, get it completed. And I ordered a new cable for my 3D printer for the extruder. That came today. I got them swapped out. It is now printing once again. Some, of course, more stuff for robotics, right? Like, that's what it's 90% of the time. Our 3D printer is printing stuff for robotics right now. So it's up and running. The swap out was pretty easy. Thankfully, the way I had everything cabled managed, it wasn't too bad. So I had picked up, it was kind of that soft, stretchy fabric. If you think of like the finger traps, it's pretty similar to that, though it's got a cut through the side of it so that you don't have to feed everything back through. You can just kind of open it up and run your cable into it. It's pretty nice. My kids are actually using it on their robot right now too. Probably some of my favorite cable management material there is out there. So replacing the cable was pretty fast. Everything's up and running. I haven't seen an error. I've got Fluid up, which is the server for Clipper that I'm using. It looks fine. It's still printing. Yes, I'll talk about what it's printing a little bit later because I had to learn some more software in order to teach my son the software so he could build this stuff for robotics. Definitely an adventure going on, but I jinxed myself saying everything was running fantastic, and come to find out that, you know, when you open your mouth and not knock on wood, things break.
Now, do you know why the connector failed? Because that's something to be maybe cognizant of. Like, did the
I'm wondering if I just didn't have it quite tight enough when linked to the other cables or something like that. And so it just caused enough wiggle over time that it made that connection loose. Right. So when I reconnected everything this time, I have a cable tie pretty close all together. So it stabilizes that cable as it's going into my extruder.
That's a good idea.
A little bit better than it was before.
It's trying to think about it, but years ago I had a problem with my Christmas lights because the cable the wire did become a little bit loose, and just creating a little bit of a gap causes heat, which will cause it to fail. So, yeah, well, good. I'm glad you got it worked out, and you can move on to printing more printables.
Printing more printables, lots and lots of printables. And the thing is my kids and I are learning CAD. There's going to be far, far more printables in our future. Thanks to you for finally giving us some options that we can run on Linux.
I will say, Onshape is fantastic.
It's absolutely fantastic. I've been enjoying it. It's just trying to, living in a world of graphic design stuff for so long that whole switch to doing things differently in CAD is interesting, right? I mean, I can't just highlight everything and be like, okay, center. No. That doesn't work anymore. Yeah. And once you change mindsets of, okay, I'm in this program and this is the way this program likes to do things, and you kind of learn those intricacies. There you go. Then it's not as bad. Of course, there's things all the time, which is one of the fantastic things about Onshape is if I don't know how to do something, I just do a quick search on I need to blah, 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 blah. And there's a pile of videos and I'm like, okay, that's how you do it. And then things get fixed. I know you shared another piece of CAD software recently that you're still working with and playing on. And I have opened it up.
Onshape is wonderful.
Looked at a little bit. Yeah, I have looked at that other program a little bit and it was like, If I need to do something in Onshape, because I'm very new to CAD, I can just DuckDuckGo it and find the answer. Whereas in this other program, I don't know that I can get the same one-to-one.
So I did a CAD project recently. And I don't mean to like steal anything from you on this, but I did a CAD project recently. I was clipping on, I think I sent you a picture of it.
You did send me a picture of it, yeah.
So it was successful enough that I could finish the task and it's done. And
right.
I did several design changes, had no problems. And then I made one more alteration, and then somehow it lost its references. Like it completely, it even lost like what face to use. And so I had to like basically redo everything except for the very first feature. I had to redo the entire thing. And I was like, and I was really sad because it was working so well. I did many changes up until that point. And I mean, it did lose some references for rounds or fillets. Not a big deal. I don't care if that happens, like one or two, not a big deal. But when you lose, but when it doesn't remember what surface I'm creating the sketch upon, and then that's almost now I'm back to, well, Onshape is great.
Onshape is great. Yes, Onshape is great. And the thing is the things that you are designing, if you're just looking at them, especially for a CAD newbie, they look so simple. But then when I go into CAD, I just tried to create a simple hook the other day in CAD, and that feels so much more complicated than it should be. And I know it's just because I'm trying to figure out exactly what I need to do in order to make those shapes, get the right measurements and place things in the right place before I extrude and cut them and all of that stuff. But basic shapes can be so complicated.
Yeah, it's all about like when you think about it mechanically, how you want the thing to work. And if you think about it from a mechanical perspective, CAD is great. When you think about it from like a design perspective, you want to create this sort of a shape. That's more complicated because you have to think about the mathematical construction of that shape as opposed to just a feeling of that shape.
Right. Yes. Yes. Knowing the mathematics of the shape is a great way to explain it. And math has never been my easiest subject. And so we're figuring out. We're figuring out. I might have to share my hook with you and I can show you what I did. And you might be like, hey, there is so much of an easier way to do that than the way you did it, which I'm sure there is. Right.
Maybe.
But
maybe not.
Maybe not. Well, we'll have to see. And the thing is you're so nice about the way things are. You're probably like, no, that's great. That's fantastic. Even though it sucks.
Well, so that is it's a bit of a slide rule. So there's things that, maybe you probably see the flaws in it, but then when you look at it from the perspective of, does it get the job done? Yes or no? Right. Does it get the job done accurately? Does it maybe is the execution maybe a little bit rough, but it still gets the job done? Then it's good. It's about how quick can you get to production on this is really what it boils down to. And that's really what really matters. Now, at this point, if I wanted to print it, I could print it and it would be fine. It like I said, it's very basic, nothing super, super fancy, but it could print and probably work. I haven't seen if Onshape has this feature yet, but I know it's the company PTC that creates Onshape. Their main CAD package called Creo does have this, and it's super cool. We can build inheritance models. So it's essentially you have basically more of a basic version of a thing. Let's say it's a refrigerator door, and then you have one model that has this kind of handle. You have another model that has these types of drawer interfaces, or another one that has another type of drawer interfaces, but it all works with the same base model. And then you take the base model and you modify it from there. And so when you make a change to the main base model, as long as your interfaces are good, then you can create a whole new series of objects with only making a change on one model, and all the rest will inherit those different changes.
That's amazing. Features like that and the work that you've done in CAD professionally, I'm sure makes some of these other ones, like we've talked about in the past, so much more disappointing.
Yep. I think what's most disappointing is PTC created a Linux version of that, and it worked better than the Windows version. Like so 2005 was like 10 years ago. Yes, we'll go with that. So back in like 2005-6 timeframe, it's like wildfire at the time. That was a near perfect for Linux CAD application. Yeah. It works so well, and I used a lower powered Linux machine instead of these high-end Windows CAD machines at the time because it works so well on this Linux machine. And I was able to get it to work with all the other stuff because a little sleight of hand and things could just work. Right. And when they dumped the Linux version, I think it was in 2008 or 9, and not that I could get it anyway. I may have had a copy that was not 100% on the up and up, and now you just can't run it because all the Linux has moved so far away from that where that was released.
Right, so the underlying stuff
technology is all different. Anymore. Yeah, so probably is not Wayland ready, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not. Yes. Matt, you have had good luck and bad luck with Minisforum. So fingers crossed your latest purchase from them is good.
Well, so the latest purchase was made this past weekend, give or take. It was Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, something like that, I think, is when the picture popped up in our group chat.
So let's hope this purchase is a little bit better than the last one.
No, you did get your money back in the other ones, right?
I will give them credit. They gave me a full refund. Yes. On the full refund, they did give me credit. Their product support and all the other stuff, I question. The customer service aspect, that could use some improvement. But once they said they were going to do it, they did it. So I'll give them credit. The month and a half that it took me to get to that point with them was a little annoying. But that being said, this particular machine is the third iteration, I'm guessing because it's a V3, of a tablet system that they had. Now, I had the V2, which I actually kind of liked. It was a nice Intel-based tablet. Like, it's basically a Surface Pro without the price tag of the Surface Pros.
Right, yeah.
But those were Intel. This one is AMD-based tablet. So the default configuration that you can get, or at least they initially shipped to, was 32 gigs and a terabyte SSD on a 165 refresh screen at 2.5K.
Nice.
But it was also an AMD Ryzen 7 88. I'm probably going to butcher the numbers because Ryzen's gotten stupid with how they name things now. I think I think it's an 8845.
Yeah. Well, this one says 8840U.
Yeah. So
because I've got the page you have linked pulled up. Yeah.
But either way, it's the same thing that's essentially in the Asus ROG Ally and those kind of things. Mm-hmm. So it has a bunch of the AI stuff. I don't care about the AI stuff, Nate. I know you've been using Llama lately and having fun with that. But for me, I generically don't care about the AI stuff personally.
So you got it with the 16 gigs and not the 32?
No. I went full spec. So
you went full spec. Okay, so you got the 32 terabyte.
It's all on with it being on sale because initially this was like a $1,300 purchase price, give or take.
15, yeah, for 15. the version you're going.
Super expensive. They have it on sale for $9.99. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, but I already have like a Surface Book. Like I have similar devices already. Why would I need this? Because of how much I've been traveling over the past 6 months, and doesn't look like that's slowing down anytime soon. The nice thing with this is this has, I believe it's Oculink in, but generically, or VLink, sorry, it's DisplayPort input. So the 3-in-1, the 2-in-1 becomes a 3-in-1. So the screen of the tablet becomes a portable monitor for an external output device.
Very nice.
Yeah, that is cool.
So I can
takes SD card and has audio jack. Holy cow.
So I can take something like this, which is, the 1X mini player there, and I can take that, I'll probably have to use some type of dongle converter because it's DisplayPort, but I can do HDMI to DisplayPort input and use that as a portable monitor from this. So that eliminates the need for just a bunch of extra stuff that I currently have to carry regardless. So like I can find a DisplayPort, kind of connection instead, which is totally fine with me. The faster refresh rates and all that stuff, they're nice. They make for a better like gameplay experience and all that stuff. If I'm using it as a external monitor, something like on a gaming handheld, it's not gonna like that. That doesn't matter to me because most of these games can't push 2.5K at 165 hertz. That's the point.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And one of the nice things about this too is it looks like it has 100% of the P3 color space, which is really pretty nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of like creative aspects to it that a lot of creators will like. It's got Windows 11 on it and a bunch of the Windows nonsense that I don't like. So Windows will be getting nuked from oblivion to not be on it.
Okay, so last time you tried that with your other Minisforum, things didn't go so well.
That was because I was playing with an external GPU on that.
Okay, so you're not going to be plugging in the external GPU to this one. Okay.
If I do, I am looking at getting a cheap secondhand used Radeon card. Because it's AMD.
So that way you go AMD to AMD.
Yeah. So as opposed to AMD to NVIDIA, which has been certain problems about why I can't do it.
Yeah,
exactly. Because I can speak to the mobile experience with the Minisforums that I have had plenty of good things to say about, which is the HX99 that uses a dual GPU setup because it's a mobile. So it uses a dedicated 6600 and a whatever Radeon something number that they use for their integrated solutions. Uses dedicated most of the time, but it does the switching flawlessly. So
yeah,
I know the experience is better on AMD when it comes to that.
Right. Well, typically your whatever distro fits the hardware the best. But I'm curious, which one are you wanting to put on it first to test out? Which is the one that you hope is going to work on it?
So everyone knows my default generically tends to be Garuda, just because for me and what I use most things for, the initial setup is the only setup. So which is
nice. I love the setup of Garuda. Yeah.
So for me, that is a lot of the draw to Garuda, where it's once it's installed, it boots up, it gives you this. What apps do you want to install? All within the tabbed interface there. Click it, type in your password, it downloads all the things, it updates the thing, and you're done. You don't have to worry about it anymore. It's just done. If that doesn't work, I honestly don't know.
I have a suggestion.
Would it be a green lizard as its mascot?
Yes. How did you know?
It's almost like your entire background's green to represent your love and an unhealthy obsession with said distro.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Wendy, remember, he says almost unhealthy obsession.
Yeah, almost unhealthy obsession.
Almost.
So what I think is really cool about this, which you have not touched yet, is that active pen. Now, I don't know if you're into the artistic stuff or whatnot, but I have a graphics tablet.
No.
Well, I know, but you might want to write out your memoirs.
Draw some stick figures like Ryan.
Yeah, there we go.
I might be a little more artistic than Ryan. Not much, though.
So I think that is super cool that it has that as a feature. I would love to try something like that out just to see how it goes. I also will say, since Wayland on Plasma, if you have a graphics tablet, there's a setting in there you can choose how you set how you want the tablet to interact with your screen arrangement. You can have it do whatever the active screen is, a specific display, or the entire display. I think the entire one as well. And super cool because you can have, Krita over on one screen. And so every time you use the tablet, it'll input there while your mouse is doing whatever it is somewhere else. You don't have to, you have the multiple inputs in one machine. The way Wayland handles that is super, super cool. So I can make, I'm drawing on this one here, but maybe I'm working on this one here, and whatnot. My email's over here. So,
see, that's something I haven't got to play with yet because where I've got an NVIDIA card and I don't have Plasma 6.1 yet. So on 6, it doesn't play very well with Wayland and NVIDIA. And I don't know if I'll actually, once 6.1 comes down to Manjaro for me, I don't know if it's something that I'll stay on. It kind of depends on if DaVinci will launch. If DaVinci won't launch, then I'm out, right?
Right. So...
wait. If DaVinci, so are you going to start being Michael, but with Arch-based distros instead?
Well, the thing is, and I've been open about this since everybody's like, everybody should be on Wayland, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, some of us have work to do, and it doesn't launch on Wayland. So if you want the show, it has to work like DaVinci has to launch.
Yeah. I know. I just enjoy giving you crap about when people give you crap about it because it's like, so I was like, wait a minute.
I still update more than Ryan does, and I will continue to update it on X for as long as they give me that capability. What am I going to do when the software I need doesn't launch on Linux and I'm forced to use Wayland? I don't know. I honestly don't know, but it is, if I'm being open, something I'm a little bit worried about.
It's understandable.
I know one of the, was it Novu, whatever, the open source NVIDIA drivers. I know one of the guys recently got hired by NVIDIA. So a lot of the issues that seem to be a thing, it's almost like NVIDIA kind of subtly pushing stuff in more
brought in a developer to kind of help with some of those things.
Whereas AMD is like, here's a code dump, have fun. It's just kind of,
and that's just it. If I am working with, say, Darktable, which I'll get to talk about on the latest episode of DL, or if I'm in DaVinci, like I need that OpenCL processes, and in pretty much every case, that has to be those proprietary drivers to make that work.
I wonder how they work with the Intel. Because
I don't know. I'm curious.
That'd be fun to mess around with.
I'm curious.
You mean like the dedicated Intel, or do you mean integrated?
Yeah, like the Intel Arcs.
And see all the above.
I would be hesitant to. I would be hesitant to put a DaVinci Resolve level workload on any GPU.
on an integrated GPU, no, definitely not. But dedicated, yes.
All right, I gotta say the latest integrated GPU that they have, like on the okay, I haven't tried the Ultra yet, the Ultra series, but the 13th generation i7 that I have. The integrated GPU is quite performant, and I'm very impressed with how hard you can push it. So
now
it's not going to have the same.
I'm doing enough in the Fusion tab now that I don't know. I personally don't think I could use an integrated GPU.
A lot of that will boil down to like compute cores, and there's a lot of because. As much as I love gaming and all that stuff, if you want a certain level of gaming, you need a dedicated GPU. That's just the way it is. Yeah. And I love these kind of devices. I view them as consoles, etc. I love them, but on the same note, I am also not unaware of their limitations. And
right.
generally it'll come down to compute and throughput, and there's a lot of driver optimization is also a thing. And but I definitely know what you're saying there, Wendy, because displaying to multiple monitors is one thing. Actual throughput and workload, like tact workload, is very different. You know, kind of like when you tried doing a 4K game and a 4K workload at the same time.
Yeah, pushing 4K monitors and trying to run a 4K game. This card was like, I hate you. I hate you.
so for reference, so people have reference, that is a RTX 3060 Ti model.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's a lot of performance.
So, you know, I definitely feel like I am pushing it a little bit already, because I do have the 4K monitors, and it is only 8 gigs of VRAM in this case. And there are times where I'm like, okay, I've done enough stuff with Fusion. I've done enough of that. Everything's running slow. Even though I know my video and audio tracks are lined up, there's no sync right now. So I have to shut down my system, reboot, and then get back to editing.
So Wendy, as a video editor and as someone who made the same recommendation to Nate not that long ago, max out your RAM.
I already have plans to do it, right? That is already on the to-do list of things to do, both for the physical RAM in the computer and a graphics card update. Like, those are on the list of things to do related to work. And I get to say, like, hey, it's for editing.
The tax write-off.
It's for work.
Tax write-off.
So, also, just in fairness to Wendy, and you, for some odd reason, Matt, asking me to max out the RAM in a 10-year-old server is a different price point than asking Wendy to max out the RAM in a more modern. I mean, it's only one memory generation behind, but that's quite the generation.
The thing is, though, is it only makes sense for me to give myself the overhead to go, instead of just going to 64, to just dump to the 128. Because I'm already using so much at this point that, yes, it will run better if I just go ahead and double it. But at the rate I'm going, and it's more of, I can see that, okay, I've been editing longer, and now I'm like, ooh, I want to add in this fun thing. I want to do this fun thing. And I think my editing workflow isn't necessarily going to be more complicated over time, but it's definitely going to be more hard on my hardware, right? I'm going to be using more resources over time as I grow as an editor. So I might as well make that jump.
Yeah, because a lot of that will boil down to, how comfortable you are with the software after a while. Personal workflow, source files, and how big those decide to go. Because eventually there's going to be, right now you said you're dealing with 4K as the general source file.
So right now we upload all of our videos at 1080p. But
that's
I think
for our
this time, for the first time, Matt, I've got yours pulling down in 4K. My camera can handle 4K, but I don't have a way for that 4K to go into my computer. So even though it's recording at 4K, what my computer gets right now is 1080p with the adapter that I've got for it.
Gotcha.
If I could do it in 4K, I definitely still pull down the files in 4K, and then the show at this point would still go out in 1080p, but it gives you more wiggle room. It gives you better quality to start with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Quality for various things like zooms, and I know what you're talking. I know what you're talking about as someone who's done enough video editing where it's
right.
The better the source, the more you can play around with the source and that kind of stuff. And so when
it's why I say that if you have a camera that can shoot in RAW, save both versions. If you've got the space, save both versions. Right, save your JPEG and your RAW file.
I was going to say, at 4K, it gives you more room for also more granularity. So when you crop, and things like that.
For crop and that kind of stuff. And you just have more data overall that helps with adjusting colors. Now, for you two, I never really go through and adjust color. For me, I typically do a little bit, and I bring up my brightness a little bit in just about every single show, post-processing wise. Yeah, I can't help it.
Well, Nate, you have to edit out that green tint.
So,
you know, Da Vinci does give me the availability. I could, but I won't.
So you really have to edit out all the imperfections on mine. Is what you'd have to worry about.
Wendy, what you do the next episode? You know how we've accidentally had the audio out of issues.
Mm-hmm.
Just leave the audio in. Take Nate totally out of it, and just have the audio.
Oh. Just have a gecko there the whole time.
So, it's trying to hurt my feeling again.
Bingo.
Your feeling.
Yeah.
Stop stealing my material.
Yeah, that definitely is a line that you've used before, for sure.
Beat you to it this episode.
God. Yeah, I know. But so speaking of hardware and all the other things, we always love open source hardware, though.
Yes.
But with that comes a software experience as well, open source projects as well. One thing I take pride in is I very much view everything tech-wise as an appliance. Mm-hmm. So seeing things that are purpose-built, i.e., I keep showing this thing, but it's like, this to me is an open source console now because I have literally nuked Windows to oblivion on it, and it runs Linux. So
good choice.
DIY console for me. Mm-hmm. And seeing more and more options like that out in the field are always fun to see because, I've seen DIY things like CyberDecks and all the other kind of stuff, but like this, some of these are,
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
Sorry, derailed you. Yeah. It happens again.
Yeah, you're good. Nate, you are an entire derailment to begin with.
I am like the end of Back to the Future 3 when the train goes off the rails and it blows up in the ravine. That's me.
That's you.
Nate, I'm going to steal a line from the Matrix, except for as far as it relates to the rails. There are no rails when it comes to you because it's always off the rails.
So like Polar Express when they're on the ice and they're like trying to guide it, more like that, just like slipping around, spinning around. Not that good.
So to give a country bumpkin reference, because I grew up in Maine, you are like a train on a dirt road.
I was going to be like, he's like herding cats, but there's.
You have to understand it's really hard for me. Like I think I probably drive, this AI thing I've been messing around with nuts because I keep jumping from subject to 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 subject. So
I don't think AI matters. And the thing is, I can't say much because I do the same thing. The whole show does that in general. So when I was rewriting the intro for this show here a few weeks ago, my husband, Magneto, was like, you should work it in there somewhere that Linux Out Loud is the ADHD podcast of Text Digital. And I'm like, it fits. Like, it does fit. We are all over the place.
But I'm sure you would offend somebody who's actually ADHD. I'm not diagnosed. So.
I am, so doesn't that count?
No, because someone's still going to be upset.
I am diagnosed ADHD.
Someone's still going to be upset because it's just...
Probably.
That's just the nature of people.
That's the nature of the internet.
But not the nature of some of these really cool projects that we found that can run as appliances.
Yes. So I know for me, one of my favorite ones that's supposed to be coming up is the Orange Pi Neo. Now, this is being done in conjunction with Wendy, your favorite Linux distribution, Manjaro.
Right, Manjaro.
This is a open source, Manjaro specifically designed UI experience. So it's a Linux-powered handheld that is not done by Valve.
I think this thing
looks really
beautiful.
Good. Like, it looks really good.
I'm still waiting for a price point. I know there's a lot of work with the Chimera OS devs. there's a lot of cross-pollination with the various kind of console-like distro makers. I know Glorious Egg Roll is doing some stuff. I know the Chimera OS devs have a dedicated channel in their Discord specifically for this device.
Wow.
So there's a lot of stuff to it. I like where they're looking at it from a configuration point of view. I believe it was 16 and 32 were the two options for RAM. It was a Ryzen 7 7800-ish CPU for it. And the price, they said originally when it was coming out, was supposed to be under the Steam Deck. So I'm curious to see
how are they going to do that? Yeah.
I'm curious to see where that lands from a pricing perspective, because if they're it depends on, like, are they talking configuration? Like, if you're talking is your base configuration going to undercut the base Steam Deck?
Right.
So I'm interested in these specifically from the Linux distro maker trying to tailor the OS to the hardware, which is very much an Apple approach, which we don't see a lot in Linux specifically. So I'm very curious to see how that experience turns out more than anything else, because to me, that is the epitome of an appliance, because it's a purpose designed software.
Something I find interesting about the mechanical design, or some of the features I put into it. Do you notice there's a USB-C port on the top and the bottom? What I think is neat about that is...
No, I didn't notice that.
So, if you dock it a la Switch style, you can do that. If you have a Steam Deck dock, you can lock it in there as well. So it's kind of multifaceted in that way.
Well, it's kind of like these, because this has one on the bottom, one on the top.
Okay.
So that's kind of nice that, if you dock it, it can connect, but if you have to be plugged into an actual cable, then it's coming from the top instead of messing with it.
Or if you're going to charge it, you don't want to charge it from below, because you're gonna torque on that connector.
Tweak the cable. Yeah.
Now,
What? Go ahead, Nate. Sorry.
The one criticism...
All the excitement.
I'm excited. This is neat. I mean, I am perfectly happy, with my Steam Deck. Oh, wait. I mean, Steam Deck. That was a Switch. Anyway, I think I would have preferred the joystick
OpenSUSE. Shuck.
No, I mean, listen. Let people scratch whatever itch they have, and if in this case they want to do their Manjaro fungus. I mean, I'm just kidding. Manjaro's fine. It's fine.
So
I'd probably use Chimera before I use Manjaro, though. Yeah.
Let me clarify one thing. The Manjaro is looking to be a la SteamOS style, so it is a mutable file system.
Okay.
So a lot of the problems that you would have, you specifically, with what would be the Arch base, are solved by being immutable.
Right. Anyway, that'd be fine. So I'd prefer the joysticks be the same level. Okay, so I'm looking at those buttons there. I would think that the joystick would get in my way in the arrangement they have the buttons and the joystick on the right side.
As you're trying to use the YBAX buttons, is that what we're talking about?
That'd be my only. That's honestly my only criticism. I think if they do it more like the Steam Deck, how it's arranged, the Steam Deck is really the
more symmetrical,
and also the joystick doesn't get in the way of utilizing these lower profile inputs. So I think that to me would be huge as far as an improvement would be.
It almost looks like the Orange Pi is maybe a little bit narrower too, as far as where those buttons are placed. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But they're going to be hard pressed to be able to, my gangly fingers like the size of this. So, maybe the Switch is not good for me.
Right.
Especially the Switch Lite is terrible. So
anyway, Nate, the Joy-Cons attached to the Switch, period, doesn't matter if it's the Switch Lite or the Switch. There is no profile to the back. It is a flat back with those two hooks on the top where your left-right triggers are, and that's it.
Not my
terrible.
Switch. Not my Switch. I've got a great
grip.
I've got, for my gangly fingers, I got the perfect grips for mine.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got the Horizon split controller or whatever it was, whatever it's called for the Switch.
Oh,
correctly. There's a specific controller that I know he has that it's more of a...
That helps with that. Gives you more.
It's a larger grips. It's a bigger, it's a fatter, meatier. It doesn't cause my hands to cramp when I'm playing, when I'm cranking away playing Super Mario Wonder or whatever it's called. So
right.
Okay, let me rephrase that, Nate. The default experience that the Switch ships with, barring, and yes, as far as ergonomics,
it's as ergonomic as something very unergonomic.
Yes. And this is where Wendy can have a bit of fun with it. Wendy, this is where you just put in the unergonomic B
something.
Just so let people totally
fill
in their own.
Yeah. Well, no. See, normally it would be me that she would be doing that to. I think it would be funny this time if it was you.
The thing is the show isn't over yet, and I have done it to Nate once. I think in the full history of me editing the show, I think I have beeped Nate once. I have cut out other things that we've talked about, but not necessarily like just a mini section.
And me generally is by about every episode.
Every episode. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So I came across a application, appliance that I had no idea even existed. And it's kind of what got us started down this road of like, hey, what's some really cool appliances? And I can't remember exactly what I was looking for, but on Thingiverse, I came across these cases for a Reef Pi, and I'm like, what in the heck is a Reef Pi? So I went and looked up this open source project, and it's actually a controller for your saltwater aquariums. I have a freshwater aquarium, and I have wanted a saltwater aquarium for years, but I've been worried about, making sure that there's a proper mix of salt to water and all of those other things that you have to have in order to keep a saltwater aquarium healthy. And that is what this piece of software allows you to do, where you can get off the shelf parts, your Raspberry Pis and that kind of thing, and create this application that helps you monitor your saltwater tank. I think you can even use it to help top off different things. So keeping that healthy environment for your fish, for your coral, whatever else you've got in there. There's all kinds of fun little critters and stuff that you can have in a saltwater tank. And I have an uncle who does have a saltwater aquarium. And so after I found this, I sent the link to him. I'm like, hey, this is a project that you'll be interested in. And now knowing that this is available, I need to wait until all of my freshwater fish pass away. It's probably going to be a while because in terms of like fish life, they're really not that old I guess. Yeah. Anyway, so it's probably going to be a while, but this is something that I can think about and look at in order to control that saltwater aquarium lately. And if you've been wanting one, or if you have one, check out this project.
I think that's a super cool project. One, I'm not mature enough for an aquarium, but if I were to be mature enough for an aquarium, I would need something like this that could nudge me and monitor me, because I'm not diagnosed, but sometimes I have an attention issue.
Nate, you are never mature enough, period.
Yes.
Not true. Just for this, just period.
in general, just all around.
Yes.
A wise man, my father, once told me that you don't have to grow up, you just have to grow old. So,
yeah, I get that. I like it. I definitely like that.
I've embraced that with everything in my life. I will forever be a child in some aspect, a responsible child, some-ish. Keep the bills paid, and stuff like that. Not let feed my kids,
but still.
But like when it comes to horseplay, we're going to horseplay, and if we break something, we break something. It's just, whatever.
It is what it is.
YOLO, right? You only live online.
No, that's not what it stands for. Though, rhetorically, some people do.
Anyway, cool. This is very cool, and I missed. Cool. It's not on our list here because you've talked about it before, but that coffee maker one kind of reminds me of this a little bit. They seem kind of very similar. And when my coffee maker does die, which I've had it for like 5 years now, so I don't know what the problem is. It should be dead by now. They don't last this long. I don't know. Something's wrong. I don't
know. That one that we had was well over 12 years old before it was finally time. Like, it cannot survive anymore. I think that's a little bit of a fluke because we tried to replace it and I'd get a new one and it would last for maybe 2 years. But you have to understand, we're a family of 6. Everyone in this family drinks coffee. Our coffee pot makes at minimum 4 pots of coffee a day.
Wow. So mine doesn't. So that's probably why it's lasting so long.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I bought this coffee pot, and like I said in the episode where I talked about this project before for the Gaja espresso machines, I'm definitely a bit of a coffee snob and I like multiple types of coffee. So I like my drip coffee. I like my mocha pot, and I love a breve. My order every single time I go is a 20-ounce breve with 2 extra shots. I like the espresso, and they're definitely cheaper to make at home. And so I would love to be able to make a true breve at home. And that's where, as I'm going back and forth and trying to figure out, okay, what kind of espresso machine do I want? I came across this open source project. There is the full DIY version. There's being able to buy the kits. And so that's nice. Mm-hmm. I like that this project, you can take a cheaper, I mean, it's still expensive, espresso machine where you can replace the parts. You can upgrade it so that it has all of the really cool features that helps you brew a better espresso over time, and you have multiple avenues of getting there. Open source projects like this that multiple different skill levels can kind of jump in and take over and make this work make me super excited. Plus, it's espresso.
For sure. For sure. So another really cool appliance project, I think we've talked about this before in the past. I mean, I know I've talked about mine, is Pi-hole. And now, if you haven't heard of Pi-hole, it's a network-wide ad blocking system that you can run on a Raspberry Pi or Docker if you so choose, or directly on an operating system. But what's so cool about this is how much it improves your network. So if, let's say, you have a smaller pipe like I do, and if you have a lot of adware, ad nonsense coming through, like DNS requests and all that tracking and everything else, it'll grind my network down to its, nubs, and just my network becomes unusable. By having this on there, and this should be something that isn't actually required, but by having this on your network, you can get a lot more mileage out by blocking all these trackers. Now, it can be annoying from time to time because if, let's say, you're watching something or you're going through and there's an ad that does interest you, sometimes you can't get to it unless you turn off the Pi-hole. So that can be annoying. But
right.
I like good advertising. I don't like this. Whatever the nonsense is going on there right now needs to stop. But anyway, so this is a really nice way to control your network. And if I look at like my Pi-hole on my network, let me see here. I'm going to see how many ads were blocked today. So just for fun here, just for funsies. So percentage of traffic of queries that were blocked is 13.2%. So that's a total of 6,745 ads, essentially, or ad-related queries that have been blocked from my network. And that's pretty significant. So you're talking,
Well, and it's not just ads that it can do. And I think that's where it has an added benefit is it can help block some of those phishing attempts. Mm-hmm. It can help block tracking of you as you are on the internet and stuff, saying, hey, I don't want these trackers to be activated and the like. So it's not just ads. It helps protect your network overall in many different ways. And so you can get different lists that aren't just ad lists that you can add to it and help protect your family, help protect your technology that way too.
Yep. And that's many benefits is really what it boils down to. And for me, it's the number one. Well, okay, one, it protects you a little bit on the internet. It's not a full protection, but it is a layer of protection against the nasty outs.
Right, it's a layer of protection.
And then also the performance increase is also very beneficial. So
yeah,
it's truly a great product that you can put on a Raspberry Pi. It's easy to set up. It's easy to maintain. I've had mine going now for several years. I've not had any problems with it, which means it's probably going to give me problems tomorrow. So I shouldn't have said that. But
yeah, if it's anything like my 3D printer,
right?
You know.
So if you want a nice way to basically improve your network's efficiency, this is a great way to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of my other favorite gadgets that is available, shock, it's gaming related. Novel idea.
No way.
No way. Is actually the Retro Pi. So this entire thing is retro gaming. So this would be right up Nate's alley. Wendy, you can go to sleep.
Okay, sounds good.
Take a nap.
So this will turn any Raspberry Pi into a retro arcade, essentially. It is a full software implementation top to bottom for the Raspberry Pi. It is amazing, and I just don't have really enough to say about it. But Nate, I know you're more the emulation guy than I am. So I know most of yours is usually Retro Arch, ironically. But what do you think about stuff like this, where essentially these are, open source appliances for like gaming and stuff that with like the Retro Pi and whatnot?
So one of the things that I really enjoy about Retro Pi is it's a way of preserving a lot of the gaming heritage. And although you have companies that are being naughty like Nintendo and doing what they can to discourage saving art that was made for Nintendo, I mean, I guess they have I can understand their position on it, but I think that their heavy hand approach is inappropriate. But this is a great way to preserve a lot of that, to relive some of those nostalgic years, and have it in one small, nice little functional, low power package that you can put under your TV or behind your TV or whatever, and just have it there to use whenever, you get that itch, that urge to Mega Man 2 it up and help Dr. White fight. Was Dr. Wily? What was it?
Dr. Light.
Dr. Light,
Dr. Light fight Dr. Wily.
Yeah, Wily. Yeah. To help Dr. Light in his quest to take down Dr. Wily, which maybe Dr. White was actually the real bad guy. But anyway, regardless of how you want to look at the lore there, there's something great about having, all that, 40, 50 years, last 40, 50 years of gaming history, essentially, in one accessible form that's easy to utilize, and you can add, you can add whatever ROMs you have, and just have a ball. So I think the Pi 4 is great.
Do note legal ROMs that you have ripped yourself and own. Clarification.
Yes, most definitely.
Legality reasons.
How you got these?
No, but
if you own a copy of the game, then there's no reason why you shouldn't have a ROM of that game that you can put wherever you want.
And for those that don't know what we mean by ROM, we mean backup of your content on the disk.
Read only memory
ISO
of the device.
Yes.
So
that is correct. I love the Retro Pi and what it brings to the table for emulation and the lower barrier to entry, because realistically, any of the Raspberry Pis, cost wise, and the other various, was it Odroid and a few of the other board, like system on a chip kind of boards, are fantastic for stuff like this, because like you mentioned, Nate, the game companies are terrible about game preservation. I think there was a survey not that long ago that out of the entirety of gaming, 13% is preservable currently.
Wow.
Preserved 13%. Out of every, so they want to, and this is a medium that wants to be considered art. Well, you have to preserve art.
Mm-hmm.
And so when companies like Nintendo go and nuke from orbit Uzu, and now you can talk about the legalities of it, things like Uzu and other ones, but leaves old school emulators alone, I do find a bit ironic. So it's interesting, but I think from a game preservation point of view, I think projects like this and appliances like this that make that possible are highly, highly important for the long run. And I think we need game companies and gamers as a whole need to do better about making sure that stuff's preserved than they do.
Yeah, it's actually kind of sad how poor stewards a lot of these game houses are, and even Nintendo to some degree. People who, there's much to be said about the value of the art and how these games actually inspire people to create their own variations and so forth. And the fact that Nintendo, rather than encouraging that, they nuke it from orbit, is gravity bomb it, whatever, is really kind of, it's a tragedy. And I think it's, because the fact of the matter is, if they were to create, when they did the NES, the mini NES, it outsold the Switch.
The classics and stuff.
It outsold the Switch when they released that, and sort of the Super Nintendo version of that outsold the Switch that year. And I think someone in their bean counting department is totally missing the point. They're going to really Commodore themselves if they're not careful.
Ironically, the thing that I don't think ironically, if I remember correctly, most of those mini consoles, classic consoles, most of them relied on open source emulators.
Right.
So the irony of it, because I know Atari, I like some of the stuff Atari. I'm more of a VCS guy, but I know there are certain things that Atari has done that Nate likes, like the new 2600 Plus and a few of the other things that interest you.
Right. But
they use Stella as their emulation on the VCS,
which is great.
And and they make no qualms about that. They use it. And I find it funny that these commercial companies detest essentially what those provide, but they take advantage of what those provide.
Right. It's like
it is funny.
It's almost like the bully tactic of the playground bully, where they the bully makes fun of the smaller, weaker one on the playground, then makes fun of the toys over, then takes the toys and plays with it. It's kind of like what they're doing. It's just so, I don't know. Nintendo is not going to lose significant amounts of money because of emulation. They're just not. If they choose to release something and make it easily available, people are just going to buy it because they like it, because it's a good product. They just have to concentrate on making good products, not trying to crush.
Right. Yes.
Not squeezing their every last drop of value out of their IP. I think they forget that people are the most important piece of this entire thing. It's not the almighty dollar or yen.
Or yen. Yeah. Yeah. If you make good games and good consoles, people will buy them, and they still want to enjoy the ones that they enjoyed as a kid and be able to share those with their kids.
Right. That's it.
And for those that want the or don't quite get the reference, Mega Man 2 was Dark Souls before there was Dark Souls.
I don't understand.
It was a very hard game. You will die a lot. Watch and repeat. Learn from your mistakes.
Mega Man 2 is the best.
Yes.
So
also one of the hardest.
Metal Man rocks. This is metal.
And technically, and if we want to go technical, it's not Mega Man, it's Rock Man.
Really? Okay. Good.
Yeah. The actual Japanese title for Mega Man is Rock Man.
Because he rocks.
If you look at the first generation of most Mega Man stuff, you'll notice a theme there. It's mostly around music. around the metal, the names and stuff.
That's interesting.
Oh, interesting.
One of these things, I was watching a podcast this week in retro. I think is what it's called. I think that's what it's called. It's a very cool appliance from Hackaday. It's called the article's from Hackaday. The WinAmp. It's an IRL WinAmp interface. So it looks like a hi-fi box, but it's actually WinAmp is the front of it, and it's ridiculous and amazing, and ridiculous and amazing all at the same time. So it's behind the display is Raspberry Pi 4 with a 32 gigabyte SD card, with all the input connections brought out from there, and so the UI closely resembles WinAmp. The same kind of like Windows 3.1 or Windows 95, 98, button style and everything with the VU meters and the time and everything else. And it's just a really neat, very 80s looking thing. It's got, it's a touchscreen LCD that with an ultra wide basically aspect ratio. And it looks cool. I think it also has Bluetooth built into it, so I think you can send sound to it, and then I'm sure you can put it like part of a hi-fi stack if you really wanted to. And anyway, I just think it's super cool. It's a great way to combine the nostalgia, of like in the same vein as RetroPie and some of these other things, but into a physical appliance of an application we all used in the 90s and early 2000s. And I just think it's just such an amazing...
And a way to get your music out, to be able to have like a physical thing inside your home once again. You don't have a stereo anymore.
Right.
At least most people, I don't think, have a stereo anymore. So this kind of brings both worlds together, the old and the new. You get to build it. You get to use this really cool open source project. I know there was an episode of DL recently where they were talking about WinAmp open sourcing. I don't think it was going to be a full open source, though. I can't remember all the details. I'd have to go back and look at that again, but definitely somewhat opening of WinAmp. My biggest question, though, is on this interface, can you get some of those like crazy multiple color waves with your music like you used to be able to get on WinAmp?
Oh, you mean like music visualizations and stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I believe
it'd be cool if you could.
That would be cool.
That would be the cat's pajamas right there. But I mean, it's a Raspberry Pi 4.
Not gonna lie.
So I mean, really, it would just be a matter of implementing it, and it's probably there anyway.
Yeah.
So.
And being able to turn it on and off for this. So you have the user interface with the buttons to play and skip and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then maybe over time as a screensaver, being able to switch to that
that'd be so cool.
Pop it back and forth. That would be super cool. I love it.
Or maybe like if you're not using it for a while, it's just like the Flying Toasters screensaver. That would be.
Oh, yes. Yes. Uh-huh. I'd be all for that.
I would too.
Definitely.
Absolutely. That would just be the best.
Nate, I know sometimes that you struggle with time, right? You don't like to believe that it is 2024 and the 80s have actually been that long ago, but you get to celebrate a pretty cool anniversary this year.
Yes, I do. So 20 years ago is the year that I first began using Linux full time. I mean, I guess maybe sort of the tail end of 2003, but I don't count that. So this is the year when I had really like used Windows full time. It's when I made the complete switch, when I was no longer dual booting. So my very first laptop that I bought was a Sony Vaio. Can't remember the model number. Bought in 2003. I don't have that one anymore, but it was a piece of crap because it broke numerous times, and I had to like take it back to Best Buy, and then I didn't have it for like weeks on end while they fixed it. So piece of crap. Not going to count that one. So my first true Linux laptop that I ever had was this right here. And I still have it. It's a Dell Inspiron 5100. I think it still works. I don't actually know. But so I took it out of the...
Haven't powered it on in a while.
I have not. Huh? And the screen is really sloppy. So it can't even hold itself up. In fact...
Oh, yeah. Man.
and actually the little vent thing on the back of it just decided to stop. Anyway, so I did put Puppy Linux on this once some years back. So I know it worked a few years ago. But I had this idea. They have solid-state IDE drives now. I wonder if I could just extract a little more performance out of this thing and maybe run OpenSUSE Tumbleweed on it. So we're going to see on that. But I was just really excited that I still have this, and I found the power supply. I actually couldn't find the power supply for the longest time, but I found it, and it was.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And then so I get this in 2004. I had it up until 2007, middle 2007, when I got this Dell Latitude D630, and this machine was with me in a lot of different events. So it went overseas with me many times. At the birth of all three of my kids, this was playing music in the background. So it's just been there a lot. And this one I do keep updated with OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. It still has it on there. The problem is it does have the dedicated NVIDIA GPU, and it's just a little bit ropey these days. Maybe it'll get better. I don't know. But it shows my fandom for something. I don't know if you can tell.
I couldn't tell at all. You're not a Transformers fan at all.
Not the slightest.
Never.
No. Gen 1 Transformers are the best, by the way.
Yeah, so this is actually the movie, like the 2007 movie. That's when I actually had to put this on, because that's the year I got it and everything else.
That's that logo.
And
Perfect.
yeah, so this has been a great machine. I used this machine for 10 years. Like, actually, I was using it every day as my primary machine for 10 years.
Solidly, yeah.
So 2017. And toward the end there, like I put 8 gig of RAM in it, when originally I guess it could only support 4, but with the BIOS update, you can make it work. And so I think I replaced the screen on there at least once. And I did upgrade the CPU, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't. That might have been a different machine. Anyway, so I did try and extract everything I possibly could out of this machine. And I did well. In fact, when I started CubicalLabs.com, it was on this machine. And it's really worked for me very well ever since.
Nice.
I should say, until I stopped using it. The next machine that I got was a Dell Latitude E6440. So in 2017, so I use this one. In fact, this one I still utilize. It's not really fully retired. I still use it because it's a great machine still, even though it's from 2014 when this was made. But so from 2017 to 2020, I use this machine. And I didn't like fully retire it. Like it's been kind of on and off used. There's really nothing wrong with it. And in fact,
the thing is the Dell Latitude line is such a I don't know if they are now, but I know in the past they have been an extremely solid line of laptops. Absolutely awesome. I know I had one. I can't remember what version it is. I think it's up here on a shelf. I'd have to look. But I have one that ran fantastic for a very long time. That was kind of also a daily driver, even if it wasn't like my main machine. The kids and stuff were using it until there was a Christmas accident and there was some non-alcoholic eggnog that was spilled in the keyboard. They don't like to drink eggnog. I don't recommend feeding your Dell Latitude.
This is true. Eggnog. Apparently computers they're very dry.
Lactose intolerant. Yeah.
So I replaced that computer because I got a machine from my previous employer when they let me go due to all the craziness we had in 2020.
Things.
Yeah. So
yeah.
This is part of a severance package. It's a EliteBook 840G7. This actually was a really good machine. I would still be using it today if the keyboard didn't suck, essentially. So
yes, you had all kinds of flaky issues with that keyboard. I think other than you saying, hey, I like it, every other time we've heard about it on the show has been, I have to fix the keyboard again. This key popped
So
up,
I got to replace the keyboard for it now, and I need to take it apart. But this is the reason I replaced this in 2000. So this actually was in service the shortest amount of time. Well, actually, maybe the Inspiron. But so between those two, the Inspiron would have been used, except it's just big and heavy and bulky. This is not a bad machine,
right?
And it's a 10th generation i5, so not terribly powerful, but great on battery life. But the keyboard was terrible, and then to service it is terrible. So there's that. And then into 2023, I went to the Framework 13, which, when looking at all these machines, everything that I had in the last 20 years of Linux, of course, there are other machines in there too that I played with. It's not but these are my main machines that I utilize that came with me places, that went overseas or had events or whatever. The Framework is by far my favorite of all of them, even though the others have very significant, nostalgic, I like them for various reasons. It's, I've never been so happy with my framework. This is not an advertisement for framework or anything like that, but the evolution of the computers that I've utilized is just, it's something that's just kind of fun. And looking at the last 20 years of Linux, it's just kind of where it is. And I really, I don't know. I just thinking about it on my way home from work today of all these different fun little, bits. And so I'm going to probably write an article on it this year sometime. I got to get it out this year because this is the 20th year of my Linux journey, essentially.
Right. It's the 20th year. I kind of feel like we had our own version of Jill's treasure hunt that was more like Nate's treasure hunt.
Well, I would call them treasures. Nate's,
I don't know. They definitely are a bit of treasure.
Nate's nostalgia Nixie or something like that, maybe.
There you go. There you go. Nice walk down memory lane.
So, speaking of walking or blending, you are learning Blender now. So what is going on? So that's a CAD application. Apparently there's a mechanical function of that as well. I've never successfully utilized it, but I've never actually taken the time to do that. So I don't know if there's
so this of course has to do with robotics. I know you guys can't believe that me learning another piece of software has anything to do with robotics, but it does. So the FTC team builds a robotics game every year that they use for a camp that they teach. It's over 2 weeks, and they come up with their own game for the EV3 camps. And they decided that this year they wanted to do it with the ocean, which is kind of coming up with the theme for the 2024-2025 overall game. And my son on the team was told to, or has been assigned the job of making some of the game elements. So he's jumped on Thingiverse and stuff, and on the game mat that was designed, there's some mountains that are acting as a barrier on the sand side of things, and there is a reef on a barrier on the ocean side of things. And so he was told to kind of figure out how those game elements are going to work. And we'd looked at some, pulled some up on Thingiverse, and yeah, there was some that worked, but they're not quite matching the elements. And I know we've all been playing with CAD. Well, everyone minus my husband and oldest daughter has been playing with CAD around here and that kind of thing. But, just watching some 3D printing videos and that kind of thing, one guy was talking about like the figures and stuff that he was printing. And I'm like, they're not making those in regular CAD. They're not doing that. So where in the heck are they making these items? And I'm like, holy crap. Blender. That's what Blender's for. So I spent a few hours yesterday kind of going through seeing, is it possible? It definitely is. And then showing it to my son. And he was like, this is so cool. I love this idea. And yesterday he built the one of two mountain ranges that's going to go on the game board. And one of two reefs that's going to go on the game board. So the mountain is probably the easiest of the two items. One of the cool things that Blender has now is an add-on where you can tell it, hey, import this mesh that's a landscape, and then you can use what they were calling a noise adjuster so you can get your different peaks, the height you want, how many peaks do you want inside of this, is it high poly, low poly, really cool customizations. So he's got one of those mountain ranges built, the larger one. So the finished size of that one is going to be 19.5 inches by 8 inches. So that one we won't be able to print in whole. And Blender does actually make it so that you can cut them in half or thirds, whatever you need to do, close off those sides, and you can export an STL, which is fantastic. So build whatever you need, close up your edges, export that as an STL, and bring it right into your slicer and print it. Absolutely awesome. Now, the reef was a little bit more complicated. And I'll share pictures of both of the ones that he's made and that are going on game pieces. I actually have miniature versions of them printing right now. That's why I was so excited that McCable came today, because they're going to do a workshop in Utah this coming weekend talking about how their team designs their games for camps. But he found some other reef elements on Thingiverse. And one of the nice things about Blender is inside that sculpting tab, you can bring in existing LCL files and put them all together and build something new. So he took somebody else's STI files for Reef Rock, for Coral, for a few other things, put them together inside of Blender, and then we're able to export that and print it itself. So it's a little bit of both making it from scratch yourself and taking and remixing somebody else's thing from Thingiverse. So I wouldn't say by any means I'm a Blender expert. I'm just still definitely not a CAD expert, but I have found a way to take another piece of open source software for my kids to be able to use that, learn it, and add it to some of the existing stuff that they're doing.
That is very cool. And I'm also aware that if you got good at Blender, so that's when your kids get good at Blender, my understanding is there are lots of job opportunities for somebody good at that sort of CAD modeling.
And there's so many different things that you can do in that piece of software. It astonishes me all of the different options and the different pathways you have to be. I know that there's video editing, and I think at one point I had tried to edit video in Blender, and that was way over my head. The sculpting tool actually worked pretty good. I haven't done anything in the animation side of things, but amazing piece of software that is once again being utilized for robotics around here. Who knows what else will be made out of it?
Probably something more to do with robotics.
You could probably model Matt's head as like the face of your as the face of your robot. And like
my daughter played with it a while ago, and she was in the sculpting tab. She'd actually created a dragon skull inside of it. And now that I know that you can export those files as an STL, we're gonna have to export it and print it.
That's awesome. That is super awesome. And I'm envious that you've been able to take the time to learn that, because it's been on my list of things to do now for several years, and I've not gotten around to it from one project or another. And so,
see, the only thing that got the drive to actually start learning something like that was robotics. I probably wouldn't have touched it if it hadn't been for that. My daughter's the artist, though, so that's why she was having fun.
That's so awesome.
Kind of playing with it, but I would love to learn more of it. I think it's a great way to do some of those other like detailed things that you can't really do in CAD. You know, it's not an engineering thing. Right. It is a feature. It is a mountain in this case, or a coral reef. That is where it really shines. And still being able to print those things, still being able to pull those out as an STL file. It's a place where my older daughter could definitely get into the 3D printing bug. She did have me print her some little octagon shelf things for some rocks that she's got to be able to display them. So who knows?
That is super.
CAD awesome. And Blender will go places.
Yes, it will.
Our next stop on this crazy road is gaming. Matt, you have a game for us. We're in the middle of summer. This game sounds cold.
So no, it is not cold. Well, I guess you can look at it that way. The game is called Icey. It is a 2.5D side scroller, but it is one filled with humor. And this is what I love about it. It is awesome. Essentially, you can have a meta with the narrator for the game. So think Deadpool having a narrator and Deadpool interacting with the narrator.
I love it. I love it.
So one of the things, like, you'll get in-game prompts as an example of telling you to like scroll to the left side or right side, and the narrator will say, and Icey goes to the left, and you decide to go to the right instead. The narrator will be like, why are you doing this? I told you go. Like, there's this weird like banter, and it's like, so there's a decision.
It fits the show.
Yeah. So there's a decision towards the latter part of the game where it's left trigger. It just asks a simple question of like, are you ready? And it's like, yes or no. And you can literally hit no continuously on one of the triggers to answer the question. And he's like, eventually it almost picks up on gamer habit, because if you just end up, make it so you have no choice other than to answer yes, or so he thinks. So most gamers will just put down the controller and wait patiently. Literally verbatim. I have the controller, and I have the controller, and I sat it down because I was like, I'm just curious to see what he's going to say. And I let him go through the entire spiel, and he's like, "You sat down the controller, didn't you?" and finally, he gets so annoyed, and he's like, "You have your patience is incredible," and it just keeps going. So like,
oh, how fun!
But it's a super meta game, and it is fun. Like, if you're talking just like as a gameplay perspective and all the other stuff, yes, it has all the gameplay that a side scroller would have. It's got the combat, it's got moves, all that stuff's great and whatnot. That's fast, fluid, and fun. It's verified for deck, by the way, Nate. And it is a short. So this game, like, if you're just doing a one playthrough and that's all you do, it is a super short game. I'm talking like 2.5 hours. Like, it is super short. And I'm usually not one for like, I'm usually for every hour, give me $1, you get $1 kind of deal. This game comes out at $11 normally, or $10.99 normally. I think for what you get, and if you do replay it, it is well worth that price. I've seen it much cheaper. You can usually find it in like fanatical.com or on some of the bundle sites. It's been part of bundles, but just and it is a fun game. I enjoy it to no end. I actually beat it today, finally. I had kind of been poking at it, as it were, but like, just certain things about it and that kind of Deadpool break the fourth wall meta with the narrator is just, I think that to me is the icing on the cake, because it just makes it that much more fun. Nate knew where I was going with the pun. So
I'm not always slow. Always.
Side scrollers definitely aren't my typical type of gameplay or anything, but I do love the idea of this game. It feels like one of those games where I could be playing a game, but I'm still hanging out with you two.
So the meta, so there's a meta to it. And I don't mean bad Facebook. I just mean like break the fourth wall kind of stuff.
Right. Yes.
No, but like, I really do think this game came out quite a while ago, but it is a fun game. The art style is fast and fluid and nice. And it's solid controls. The music's subtle, but good. But the voice acting and the interaction with the narrator, oh my God, that makes this game for me. And like, again,
with the way you described it, I'm definitely kind of willing to pick it up. So I love breaking the fourth wall, and it can either be done well or horrible. There is no in between. It's either done great or it's not. So it sounds like this one's done well. I know I did enjoy several different shows where they break the fourth wall, Deadpool being one of them. My husband and I have been watching an older TV show, Mrs. Brown's Boys. So if you know, very funny, where the main character breaks the fourth wall and it works. So this kind of sounds like, even though it's not my usual game and it's not my typical game style, I'd be willing to try it out.
So the one thing I do love about this is when you go against where the narrator tells you to go, it you end up in like, I can't remember what it was, the storage room. I don't remember what they storage closet, like whatever. I don't remember exactly what they ended up calling it in game, but it just has a monitor in the middle of the scene, and it goes through like the history of like, in like snarky, sarcastic kind of way of like why you should give this game 5 stars, and like like
fantastic.
The history,
I love
it. The various iterations of like the style of game is like, and why would I want to have this game with a super cool, like, one of the iterations of the game that he talks about in the game was like with a firearm and a sword and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, why would I want to give you this super cool, awesome, weapon and So that went in the so then it shifts to like a picture of a trash can with a crumpled up paper throwing it into the trash. And I'm like, there's just
how cool.
There's just certain meta stuff where I'm like, okay, I can appreciate this even if it is a little more expensive than I normally like to pay. But I think sometimes there is a quality to a game that just makes it that much more entertaining.
It's only $11. I mean, I spent more than that on Atari cartridges in the 80s. Or I should say, I didn't spend that money. My parents did. So it's not. It's not.
I know, but some people, Nate.
I know. Look, listen. I know I'm cheap, and when I drop a penny, it hits me in the back of the head because I'm bending over so quickly to pick it back up. But I mean, $11. I mean, it is E for everyone, which is very unlike you, Matt. And the art style, I can definitely see why you like it, but it's not overly maddish in its art style. And I mean, it's pretty tame, and it looks like it's fun, and I like that narrator fourth wall, like the Stanley Parable. If you've played that before, it's kind of it has a similar. I don't know if it's. I mean, I didn't hear this yet, so I can't tell you.
No. It's very similar in that break the fourth wall. Narrator player interaction.
Yeah, and
so like
and that's good stuff.
In Stanley Parable, it'll tell you to do something, and you do the opposite, and it reacts to you doing the opposite.
Yeah.
And it's just amazingly fun. I love that.
Awesome
games.
Okay, so thanks for that, Matt. I don't know if I'm going to buy it today because I have this RAM I have to buy now. So I might have to put that off.
You're very welcome for that. I mean, you made the mistake of after Matt had to leave at the end of last episode, your son was in the room, and you're like, "So Matt and Wendy said." After you already knew he wanted to upgrade it, and he was like, "Well, yeah, of course, Dad. Like, upgrade it.
Yeah.
Why are you even asking?"
And to keep Nate totally on the hook here, he did say that his son would have the final word.
Yes.
Well,
he did.
I was hoping you were going to convince him otherwise.
Us getting you to spend money. That a challenge accepted. Like, are you seriously going to say?
Well, I thought you guys had my back.
We do. We absolutely have your back, and we're also hardware addicts and all of that stuff. So there you go.
Well, Nate, if we have your back,
my name is Wendy. I'm addicted to hardware.
Well, no, Wendy. If we have his back, that means we also have his wallet. So we're going to tell him how to spend it.
Upgrade that RAM.
So we'll see. Maybe the CPUs too. So we'll see how it all works out.
Yes, you did send me that message earlier today about possibly upgrading the CPUs. But the thing is with what you said as far as the processing power that you're going to get from it and the price of them, because as you admitted, it's an older device, they're older CPUs. Like, why not get the extra processing power out?
Give her the onions. Yeah. Just put it all on there.
Right?
See how hard you can push a thing. I mean, why not? Rice the thing out and see how hard you can push it before you blow a head gasket.
Exactly. Just don't release that magical blue smoke.
I got the thing for nothing.
Anyway.
Close us out, Matt.
Yeah.
Play us off, Johnny.
So many things I want to say. Now it's your turn to toss into your 2 cents on today's topics. Hit the discourse forum, drop us a line under this video, or on the contact form by visiting tuxdigital.com/contact. If you'd like to hang out with us on our preferred social media, see the links at the bottom of the show description. You can find other great shows like Pseudo Show, Destination Linux, and Linux Saloon, and more at tuxdigital.com. Show off your love for your favorite podcasts and shows by visiting the Tux Digital merch store. Grab yourself some awesome swag like the gamer-centric I paused my game to be here shirt. Or join hashtag Team Wendy with some sinister Wendy swag. It should be at hashtag Team Evil Wendy.
Oh.
As always, we thank you for joining us. We'll be back next time with another awesome episode of Linux Out Loud. Until then, keep the banner friendly, the conversation and somewhat on topic, and have fun doing it.
Bye-bye.